Yes, and for as long as life exists, people will always need food, no matter how little one's income is. You would agree with me that food will always own a share of it. And even if a time comes where there is no food to buy, people will grow their food to eat, all in a bid to survive. And even as COVID-19 is here, part of the survival strategy is to grow the agricultural sector and ensure food security in Nigeria. Unfortunately, food insecurity has been on the rise in Nigeria. Just a few months ago, the Food and Agriculture Organization predicted that 7 million Nigerians will experience food shortage between June and August this year, as 19 northern states and the Federal Capital Territory have been identified to face food and nutrition crisis. What is the government really doing to avert this? I'm being joined by the Honorable Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Mr. Sabo Nanono. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for joining us on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Sure, I'm sure you must have heard or read about various predictions by the United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization and, of course, the World Food Programme about the impending food crisis in Nigeria because of the low-cost invasion coming from the East Africa into West Africa that, of course, will affect Nigeria. Does that worry you? And if yes, what are you doing about it?
Well, definitely it worries me and it worries everybody, and we have got the early warning system from FAO about 2 months ago, and they have taken steps to mitigate the impact of this locust. Last week I launched the aerial spray and also underground spray in Kebbi State, and that is part of our preparation for the frontline states. I think about 12 states that are likely to be affected by this local invasion. So we are pretty much aware, and we are taking steps to ensure that we minimize the effect of this, if not totally eliminate the effect of these locusts.
Now, the bulk of agriculture in Nigeria is subsistence agriculture. There is a big difference, between subsistence, missionary, and commercial agriculture. In other economies, we find an optimal mix of these three. Now, what has Nigeria done to make that transition from subsistence agriculture to commercial?
I think the first thing to note is that 70% of agriculture in this country is subsistence. And this subsistence farming has been sustained in the country over decades and still very strong and still contribute probably about 24–25% of the GDP. That should be understood clearly. But I think Nigeria has now arrived to the point where commercialization in agriculture is a must. And I am happy to note that over the years, at least over the last 10–15 years, a lot of agricultural commercialization has taken place in this country. And the government is creating enabling condition for agriculture commercialization to take place. For example, we are committed to now agricultural mechanization in this country. We are poised to rationalize our research institute to give us better seeds and better advice. We are going to train probably extension agents in the region of 200,000. Now, the 130,000 naira and power, we are converting them into extension agents. So we are taking the steps toward that. And more importantly, the private sector initiative in this regard is very, very important. And I think from big industries to smaller industries, a lot is happening in terms of commercialization of the agricultural sector. But the key to the commercializing of agriculture in this country is mechanization. And that's what we are embarking now. I would like Nigerians to understand that in this country we have about, it is estimated that we have about between 84–92 million hectares of cultivatable land. As at the moment, we are only cultivating about 34 million hectares. Even this 34 million hectares is not at its optimum level because of lack of mechanization. The level of agricultural mechanization in this country, the level of penetration is so low. It's about 7 tractors per 100 square kilometers. The standard is 127 tractors per 100 square kilometers. In the African continent, Kenya is one of the countries that is leading in mechanization. They have about 27 tractors per 100 square kilometers. So if you look at it, we have a long way to go, but we have to start somewhere. To catch up even Kenya, we need to get 60,000 tractors on board in this country. And we have started, and I believe in the next 1 year, the agricultural mechanization in this country will come on full swing. We are going to involve probably about 632 local governments, and all these local governments will have all the necessary equipment, all the necessary administrative preparation for the mechanization to start through the establishment of service centers in these 632 local. Coupled with that, there will be about 140 agro-processing centers to cluster local government producing common commodities, and then we establish processing plants there.
All right, Honorable Minister, just hold your thoughts there. We'll take a quick break and we'll be back to you to continue with that conversation. So we go on a quick break now. We'll continue with that conversation when we come back. Welcome back, and this is Business Morning. We're still looking at the agricultural sector, talking about ensuring food security in the country, and I still have the Honorable Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Mr. Sabo Nanono. Yes, Honorable Minister, if I did get you right, you were saying that the government is channeling all resources towards achieving commercial agriculture. Now, yes, we heard the President in his Democracy Day speech say the government, through the Food Security Initiative, is promoting grow what we eat and eat what we grow. How come, in spite of all the government's efforts, food inflation is very high? And what is being done to ensure that output gets to the market?
First and foremost, I think we have noticed increase in prices within the last 2 to 3 months. And I think for 2 reasons or 3. One, as an effect of COVID. I think there is panic buying. People are afraid that the COVID-19 is likely to affect agricultural production. 2, there is an element of hoarding. It's not much. Some big business people have entered the market and buying foodstuff to hoard in anticipation that the prices are going to go up. And thirdly, there is a slight government intervention, particularly by the Ministry of Disaster and Humanitarian Affairs. They have gone into the market to purchase for distribution to ADFs and other related. And the fourth, which is also important to note, normally around this time, when the rainy season is beginning to start, when the rainy season starts, normally farmers tend to be a little bit cautious. They don't bring out their surplus to the market. They wait to see the direction of the market. Then as soon as the direction of the rainy season, and I think once they have confidence that the rainy season will come as usual, I think some of these surplus they held back, they will bring it into the market. And I think probably within the next 1 to 1.5 months, you are likely to have some prices coming down, especially rice, as the dry season paddy rice is coming on board. And also, the farmers would have seen what will be the trend of the rainy season, and they will start to bring in their surplus to the market. I believe it's a temporary thing. It will come down, especially as it affects grains and cereals.
Well, Honorable Minister, I'm going to take you up on that if eventually the prices don't come down, because that's where it affects all of us as Nigerians. Anyway, Ivory Coast and Ghana, for instance, are smaller countries than Nigeria, and yet they are #1 and 2 in cocoa production. Nigeria is #3. Now, these 2 countries have been able to embark on forward integration in the value chain of cocoa production. They actually produce cocoa pastes, thereby extracting more from the value chains. What is Nigeria's plan in forward integration?
Okay, I think you have touched something that is very, very important and very, very crucial in our economic development, especially for cocoa in the southwest. It baffles me. The southwest is the most urbanized, the most educated, and probably rich and experienced educationists and experienced people in the agricultural sector. How we allow the situation to reach this place, that still we are planting cocoa that will start yielding after 7.5 years. In Ghana, Ivory Coast, and even in Togo, they are planting cocoa that will start yielding in 2.5 years, gap of about 5 years. How did they do it? Tissue culture. And how do they finance that tissue culture? They finance it through the African Fund for Technical Development, of which Nigeria is the largest shareholder. Not only Nigeria is the largest holder, Nigeria also holds the chair. You can borrow money up to 15 years with in dollars to develop your agricultural sector, especially as it affects economic trees like cocoa, as well as in agro-allied industry. But somehow we were careless in not taking that opportunity. I intended to go to Lome, where the headquarters of African Band for Technical Cooperation is based, to see what we can do in this regard to attract money into our cocoa industry. Unfortunately, this COVID has hindered me from going there. But that's the problem. Is really is the issue of commitment and the management of our own affairs in this country that brought this to us. I am happy to note that in Cross River, the government there is very serious, and cocoa production has gone up there. And they established a very versatile and a new cocoa processing plant, which they intend to create a further value chain through processing of cocoa into powder and other related products.
Okay, you just unveiled what you called the Green Initiative. That's a 10-year agricultural program, what about $1.2 billion, and of course targeted at creating 5 million jobs and injecting $10 billion into the economy. Can you tell me more about this scheme, really?
Well, the agricultural mechanization program was initiated since about 3-4 years ago. It is only coming into fruition now. It's a negotiation between Nigeria and the Brazilian government. And it was agreed that Brazil will come with a package of agricultural mechanization and technology transfer in agriculture into this country through this arrangement. The Brazilian Development Bank and Deutsche Bank in Europe are financing the venture, which comes to about $1.2 billion. The African, the Islamic Development Bank is ensuring the money. And how is this going to work? It is going to work through the creation of service centers. And what are these service centers? The service centers are going to be owned by private sector. It is going to be a private sector-driven enterprise. The only role the federal government is playing is to give guarantee to cover the loan that is going to be provided. And each service center will have new directors, will have an IT and a management office, will have a mechanical workshop, and we have a storage facility. The prime mover is a director hiring scheme. And each director hiring scheme is backed up by a tracking system, so that wherever your track is working throughout this country, is going to be, its location will be known, the amount of work done, and the money it generates per day would be known. Then secondly, if you look carefully, this initiative is going to empower the local economy. You are going to make an investment of probably between 5 to 7 million naira, but you will be handed over an asset of nearly 150 million naira or even more. And from the experience, being a farmer myself, I know a director can generate anywhere between 65 to 70,000 naira per day. The net position may be anywhere in the region of 35 to 40,000 naira. So we will have a net surplus of nearly 35,000 naira per day. If you estimate carefully, over a period of probably 6 to 7 years, you will be able to pay off this loan.
Honorable Minister.
And you will still, yeah.
Well, we really don't have, yes, we really don't have much time, but before I let you go, yes, you've railed out some of these plans, but oftentimes the government is set to have fantastic ideas and policies, but implementation and policy inconsistency is always a problem. So how will this change, or has this changed now?
I have given you the answer indirectly. This project is going to be driven by private sector. Private people are going to own these tractors. Government is not going to be involved in the ownership of these tractors. And I think if you look very carefully, if people know these tractors are their own, it is going to be a business, not the usual business of government. So that's the trick. I will not support the involvement of government in this project except to the cover of the guarantees that we are going to give. So right. The sustainability of this, the secret behind it is that the ownership will be private sector, not government.
All right, thank you very much for your time, Honorable Minister, Mr. Servo Nanono, the Honorable Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development.